means, frankly.
Okay, that's perfectly clear. We're not sure what Rajnath Singh meant. Finally, let's come to the role China played in the four-day conflict. Do you share the view that Chinese J-10C planes and Chinese PL-15 missiles gave the Pakistan Air Force a significant advantage, leading to the shooting down of several Indian planes? That's been admitted. Perhaps 3, maybe 5, we don't know the number. But did the use of Chinese planes and Chinese missiles give the Pakistan Air Force a significant advantage?
This is an area which is still gray, when frankly nobody knows enough. At least nobody outside the system knows enough. And I don't know enough. I've been outside, not just outside the system, but I was outside the country when it happened. So I don't know enough to say. But you're absolutely right in pinpointing this fusion between Chinese doctrine and practice in the Pakistan army. I think this is something that needs to be looked at very, very carefully. You know, for the last 10 years or more, the Pakistan army has been teaching Chinese doctrine and tactics at Quetta in their schools, in their training. They've applied it this time. And to what extent the Chinese have always supplied the weaponry to Pakistan. That they've done consistently for many, many decades. But the actual use of it and to what extent China was involved in the actual conduct of Pakistani operations, all that we don't know. It's a completely gray area, and you're absolutely right. This is something very, very important and very significant. Because if this was so, then it matters. But to jump to the conclusion that Chinese weapons somehow gave Pakistan an edge and so on, we don't know enough. Nobody does. And this is where I'm amazed at the confidence with which people outside the system speak.
Now, both Sham Saran, a former foreign secretary like yourself, and Praveen Soni, the editor of Force magazine, are concerned about Chinese help to Pakistan in any future conflict. They believe the two-front challenge is already here. To what extent did you share that concern?
We've actually operated on the assumption of a two-front challenge since 2008. This is not some new idea, and this is why I say the level of fusion between the Chinese and Pakistan in these military operations, that is something really very significant and worth looking at for any future conflict, whether with China or with Pakistan. It's important that we get much more clarity on this. And this is something where I think, frankly, over time, we need to keep our eye on the ball. And I certainly hope that government also chooses to be more transparent in how it deals with this issue.
You know, this fusion, as you call it, between Chinese equipment, Chinese doctrine, and Pakistani Air Force and Pakistani pilots, is that something that we need to urgently inquire into, study, and
certainly, I'm sure we've tasked the intelligence agencies and others to do so. I'm sure we've done that. But I don't think you or I are in a position today to come to definite conclusions on this.
But it is something that is of deep concern.
Certainly, it's very serious. This, for me, is the major lesson that we should be drawing out from this crisis.
To what extent can the lessons, when they are known, be shared publicly? To what extent would that be inadvisable?
There will be some lessons. There are certainly some lessons that need to be shared. And there is some learning, which I think, when the CDS said, for instance, that, there will be losses in conflict, but we have to see how we respond to them, how we learn from them. I think that's a lesson that the public needs to learn. And certainly the Indian media needs to learn, because I don't think the Indian television media, at least, did us any favors during this conflict. I was sitting outside and they actually made India look quite ridiculous.
In other words, they lowered the image and standing of the country.
They also made us less credible as a country, sadly, because there was a time when they were credible.
You're talking, I assume, about claims on Indian television that Lahore and Islamabad had surrendered and fallen, that the army chief had been toppled, that Karachi was under bombardment. All of that was just...
none of them stood to reason, and there was no evidence produced. And it was sad. I mean, I really found it sad.